Before she disappeared, Vanessa Guillén told her mother she was being sexually harassed at Fort Hood. She told her sister she named what was happening. A superior officer had walked in on her while she was in the shower. She said she was afraid to file a formal report because she feared retaliation, disbelief, and ruinous career consequences. She was 20 years old, a U.S. Army specialist stationed in Killeen, Texas. She went missing on April 22, 2020. An independent review released that December found Fort Hood had the highest rates of sexual assault and harassment in the Army, and a command climate that systematically discouraged reporting. Vanessa's fear was not paranoia. It was a rational response to an institutional reality. The man who killed her worked in her unit, remained on the base for months after she vanished, and avoided accountability until he took his own life. Vanessa Guillén was the daughter of Mexican immigrants, raised in Houston and determined in her purpose. She enlisted at 18 and served as an ammunition supply specialist. Her family remembers a young woman who called frequently, sent money home, and took pride in her uniform. She had confided specific details of harassment to family members and refused to file an official complaint because she believed the system would not protect her. That judgment reflected more than fear. It reflected lived experience and observation of a workplace where formal protections were ineffective in practice. On April 22, 2020, Vanessa was last seen in the parking lot of the Regimental Engineer Squadron building at Fort Hood. Her M4 rifle and personal effects remained on base. She did not return to the barracks. The Army Criminal Investigation Division opened a missing soldier investigation, and the service issued a $25,000 reward for information. For weeks, official progress was slow. Vanessa's family, led by her sister Myra, forced the case into public view, pressing for answers as the investigation continued. During that time, the man who would be identified as her killer attended formations and moved freely within the same installation searching for her. Aaron Robinson, 20 years old, served in the same unit as Vanessa. Investigators later concluded he killed her with a hammer inside the Regimental Engineer Squadron building on April 22nd. He removed her remains from the base and enlisted the assistance of his civilian girlfriend, Cecily Aguilar, 22. Together, according to the indictment, they dismembered Vanessa's body and disposed of the parts along the banks of the Leon River near Killeen. On June 30th, 2020, as investigators closed in, Robinson left the base with a civilian weapon and shot himself. He died before arrest, prosecution, or public accounting of his crimes. The first set of Vanessa's remains was discovered the same day Robinson died. Working from information provided by Aguilar, after Robinson's death, investigators located remains at 3 separate sites along the Leon River. The search was methodical and took days. Cecily Aguilar was arrested, charged with conspiracy to conceal a murder, and later convicted on all counts. In November 2022, she was found guilty. In 2023, she received a 30-year federal sentence. Vanessa's family learned the details of her death and disposal through the conclusion of a criminal investigation, not through institutional transparency or timely accountability. The Army commissioned independent review of Fort Hood, published in December 2020, corroborated what Vanessa had feared and reported. The review documented that Fort Hood had the highest incidence of sexual assault and sexual harassment among U.S. Army installations. It concluded the command climate actively discouraged reporting, that victims faced retaliation or dismissal, and that formal reporting mechanisms had been functionally compromised by the surrounding environment. 14 officers were relieved or suspended following the report. The review made clear that the institutional conditions which made Vanessa afraid to come forward existed long before she spoke to her family. Vanessa's family refused to accept institutional inertia. Mayra Guillén transformed grief into public advocacy, testifying before Congress and insisting on structural change. The family's public presence and the accumulation of documented failures forced a legislative response. In December 2021, President Biden signed the I Am Vanessa Guillén Act. The law removed authority over sexual assault and harassment prosecutions from the chain of command and transferred that authority to independent military prosecutors. The change aimed to eliminate the central mechanism by which commanders could suppress, mishandle, or resolve allegations informally without meaningful accountability. The law represents a fundamental restructuring of military justice concerning sexual misconduct. For decades, military leaders argued that command control over prosecutions preserved unit cohesion and discipline. Those arguments had repeatedly blocked reforms. What shifted the balance was demonstrable evidence of systemic failure and the persistent advocacy of a grieving family who made the costs of inaction visible and politically untenable. Vanessa Guillén did not live to see the law enacted, but her death catalyzed one of the most significant reforms to the Uniform Code of Military Justice in decades. Institutionally, Vanessa was owed protection and access to reporting mechanisms that actually worked. Legally, she was entitled to serve without harassment and to have complaints investigated and prosecuted impartially. Those obligations failed in practice at Fort Hood. The culture that produced her fear predated her disappearance and was documented by the Army's own investigators. The institution did not merely fail to prevent the crime, it sustained an environment where reporting could be riskier than silence. Vanessa Guillén's death is a stark example of how institutional culture and leadership compound individual vulnerability. Her family's persistence produced consequences: a criminal conviction for one conspirator, discipline for multiple officers, and a change in federal law. Those outcomes, however, do not bring her back. They do alter the rules for the future. Subscribe to Case Files TV